need to differentiate between private and public cloud, probably. I think they're pretty serious, actually, and there are examples of governments already using public cloud services, not just in the US, by the way, because one of the concerns is, okay, the cloud providers are based in the US, so it's easy for US government to use, their services. Actually, that's not true. There are a couple of government agencies in Australia that I spoke with last week that are using Salesforce.com services. There are some local governments in the UK that are using Right Now CRM knowledge management applications. And the evolution would be a little bit of both. It would be those cloud providers investing to set up delivery facilities in geographies outside of the US. For example, it's already happening. I think some of the vendors are looking into Ireland as a location to provide services to the UK market, for example. And even those that provide services within the US have to comply with a lot of regulation from the National Institute of Standards and Technology to make it a viable solution. So I think governments are serious about looking into cloud, and I think vendors, especially the pure cloud providers like Google, Amazon, Microsoft to some extent, Right Now, Salesforce.com, are very committed to invest and make it possible for governments to consume cloud services. I think there's a risk for governments in over-investing in private cloud initiatives, because when those private cloud services will be ready for consumption in, let's say, 3 to 5 years, probably the public cloud services will be mature enough to be consumable by government agencies. So the governments that set up those private cloud might end up with some spare capacity that they cannot use, because there will be more agencies buying directly from Google and Amazon or IBM or HP. That is probably some area of risk from that standpoint. There are a couple of examples. In Australia, there's a few universities, and there's Department of Education in New South Wales that are using either Google Email or Microsoft Live. Usually what happens is the users actually need to access the account through a government portal anyway, so it's not fully public. There's some brokerage level that the government entity does anyway. Similarly, the city of Los Angeles is transitioning to Google Email, but it's a Google Enterprise arrangement. It's not your Google email account that you could get from the web. There is some intermediate level, but the city of LA Google implementation, if it is successful, it could represent a tipping point to some extent, because it's a huge government jurisdiction, and it could demonstrate to other skeptical large government entities that it is feasible with the right contractual arrangement, with the right changes to the risk allocation between the vendor and the government, with the vendor being compliant to all of the regulation around security and data location. We're getting probably close to the hype point. If you look at the Gartner hype cycle, probably going through some of the trough of disillusionment, and there will be some failures, but it is viable. It is on the radar of every government agency these days, and we'll see more and more happening for sure. At this point in time, there's no finalized plan. That is the main point about Asia. There's interest, but besides the initiative in in Singapore from IDA, cloud is mainly mentioned as an option in those 5 to 10 years government IT strategies. South Korea might be another place because of their forward-thinking visions that they have, because of the broadband infrastructure that they have, where some cloud initiative might happen. But I think the difference between Asia and countries like US and the UK that I see right now is that there's no specific program. There's no one that is being appointed by a government CIO or a government prime minister or premier to go and do the cloud in the next 3 years, and I want to have the roadmap clear in the next 12 months. That is the difference. That there is interest in Asia as well, but I don't see those clear roadmaps. I think the tipping point will be, first of all, to understand what cloud really is, because I think there's a lot of confusion in terms of not just technology, but in terms of the business model, in terms of what it means for risk and privacy and what we've discussed today. So there will be one tipping point in terms of understanding the cloud, and there will be a second tipping point that will be about looking at examples from various countries around the world. At this point in time, everyone is piloting, prototyping. There's some live implementation. Maybe some of those live implementation are not public yet, so you don't know the lessons learned. So the second tipping point, maybe 1 year out or 1.5 year out, will be examining those actual live cloud examples around the globe and see how they go. In terms of the local industry versus the global providers, probably public cloud in terms of global delivery will be the reign of Google and Amazon and IBM and HP and Salesforce.com and Microsoft and whatever merger and acquisition is on the horizon among all of those players, which continue merging, buying each other and buying smaller players. The local IT industry might have a role in helping setting up the private clouds, helping with defining the security requirements, defining the architecture of a cloud, more from a, let's say, consultative role rather than implementation. There might be a chance for some cloud providers locally to provide software as a service to small and medium businesses, but not to government agencies. I doubt government agencies will find a lot of cost benefits by buying services from local cloud vendors. Remains to be seen, but that's it's a critical mass game, so big vendors have an advantage.